Yes, people, it's Ted Lawlor from If Only They Knew, the hub for young business minds. In this episode, we speak to Joe Moruzzi, founder of Pleesecakes, and he talks about baking a cake for the Queen, how Joe Wicks impacted his business in the early days, and building a powerful brand, and so much more. So if you too want to learn how to grow on social media and build a community, then this is the podcast for you.
If only they knew, the hub for young business minds.
So my name's Joe Moruzzi. I'm the founder of Pleesecakes, currently known as Pleese now, and it's a cheesecake company that I started in January 2017 with the intention of making a bit of extra cash on the side of my painting and decorating company. And it's kind of scaled over the last 6 years to a point whereby we are about to launch into their big retailers this year with the most innovative and exciting dessert products, which is in line with our mission, which is to become the world's most exciting dessert brand.
Nice. And yeah, you certainly carry that energy as well. It's one of the reasons I wanted you on this show. There's something about you and the brand itself. You're able to sort of convey that energy and that excitement. So it comes across well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm super passionate about what I do, and
Yeah.
it's so originally I've always been a foodie, and I've always been interested in food, love eating food, love experiencing new flavors and stuff like that, and always been creative. So I think the combination of putting both together has really helped this business grow.
Perfect. And who were you before all of this? Before all the success came and all the followers came in, because you've got like literally millions of followers, millions of views. You've obviously been on TV multiple times and worked with massive brands, massive people. Who were you before all of this? Like you mentioned before, you was like a painter and decorator rather, but you also did a few other bits as well. Like, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, you were like into stunts, like you was a stunt man.
Well, I was training for stunts. I was
Training.
straight. Yeah, that was. I'll explain my journey in terms of like my working career or like my professional career. But I grew up in Tadworth in Surrey all my life, and I live in Epsom now. And I was kind of, I never sort of. I enjoyed school, but I wasn't academic. You know, I loved physical things. I love sport. I love beer. I love the arts. I love being creative. And I never really knew what I wanted to do. You know, I never had a direction. All I wanted to do was something. I was always quite ambitious. So I was always looking at things that were slightly out of reach, like becoming a pilot or becoming a stuntman. But the process of getting to these positions was slightly hindered in terms of like my ability to keep myself motivated, and my attention span is quite small basically. So I lose interest, I lose attention quite easily. And so I left school at 16 with no real direction. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was heavily involved in sports. I was playing squash and coaching squash. I was playing for the county, and I was doing that, and I was doing lifeguarding on the side. So I was working at my local David Lloyd as a lifeguard. Still I didn't really have any direction over that period. That was from about 16 to about 20, and I left the UK when I was 19 to go to New Zealand to work for 6 months or so. So again, just trying to find things that I was interested in. And I returned. On return, I fell into various jobs again. So the first thing that I fell into was landscape gardening. So I did that for a year, which I kind of loved. It was physical again. It was outdoors, but again, not really passionate about that job. I then fell into painting, but I only fell into painting because of the stunt thing. So,
Wow.
One of my family friend was the head stunt coordinator on the Harry Potter films, and I started doing a bit of extra work and met people on set and met the stunt guys and saw how much of a fun environment it was. And to become a stuntman, you need to get on the UK. It's a register basically, and the UK register requires you to be or to master 6 different disciplines. So it's either fighting, falling, driving, riding, water, scuba diving, or swimming, or whatever it is. And I started training for the stunt register. So I was doing like kickboxing or whatever it was, but I had to fund this, and that's when I fell into painting and decorating to fund the stunt training. And unfortunately, it just sort of fizzled out, and I had to earn a living. It was taking up too much of my time having this full time job and trying to train at the same time. Plus you have to do like 60 days in front of camera for the register, where you have to, well, I was an extra on the Harry Potter films, on things like X-Men, Warhol, so a ton of films that I was doing extra for, which was, again, a great experience. You know, that was a really good experience early on. I must have been 21, 22. But then I fell into this paint and decorate, and I did that for a number of years. You know, I worked for Brendan, who eventually became my business partner in painting. We set up a company called Palmore, our two names combined, the start of our two second names combined. And it was successful, you know, like, again, it was something I always sort of apply myself like 100%. If I'm doing something, I'm giving it my all, you know. So we set up this company, and it was doing well. We were doing big luxury apartment blocks. We were doing footballers' houses. It was fairly successful. You know, we had 10, 15 guys working for us. But I still had this burning passion for food. I love being creative, and that was ongoing. It never went away. That, you know, I love food. And my dad made a cheesecake one day. It was back in 2014, 2015, or whatever it was, and it wasn't very good. I then attempted to make a cheesecake and progress. You know, I continued to make them, and I don't know what spurred me on. I don't know why cheesecakes. I do like other desserts. You know, it's cheesecake is not the only dessert I like. I'm not just but I continue to make them. I continue to practice at home in my parents' kitchen, and just go to the supermarkets, grab the ingredients that I need, and experiment with flavors. I used to bring them to the building site, or the painting site, for the boys to try. So I'd get feedback on my on the products that I was making in little tubs, and then I started making them. Excuse me, and then I started making them for friends and families, for a birthday, for an occasion. And over about a 2-year period, they got better. The products got better, and I learned a lot, but there were still massive inefficiencies, no knowledge on process or health and safety or supply chain or social media. At that stage, I didn't have a clue what the social media was really. Like, I was on Instagram, but only a personal account. So literally no training, completely self-taught in the food and social media. And in December 2016, I've still got the notepad in our office next door. I started writing down these ideas. You know, I was like, it's a new year in 2017. I'm gonna take action. I'm gonna do something about it. I'm gonna try and turn this into a little bit of a side hustle. And my intention was to sell a few of these cakes I was making on the side for a couple of £100 extra a month. You know, that was my plan. And I was in this notepad, and I was writing it down. I was trying to write like a really brief business plan, but Pleesecakes that kept coming up. I kept writing Pleesecakes down, and there was like the build your own cheesecake bar. There was like a bit of a menu. There was like the different formats, all cheesecake, all big cheesecake related. Okay. None of the other formats that we've done today, like the truffles or the freeze cakes. And I then set up an Instagram account. So I designed a logo on an app called Canva, which quite incredibly got picked up in a news article that I did last year with the Today Show in America. And Canva picked it up through maybe AI that I've mentioned them. And we actually appeared in one of their international TV adverts, as like showing that we used the app basically for our story, which is quite incredible. And it was quite an experience, like a 2-day shoot they flew over 50 crew members from Australia, which is where they're from. Australia. Yeah, Australia.
I think it is. Yeah.
Australia. So like the incredible experiences that have come from planting the seed previously. But anyway, I set up this logo. I designed a logo on the app Canva, and set up an Instagram account on 3rd of January. And that led on to that was my like pivotal action taking moment, setting up that Instagram account. I took like 6 photos on my phone. And back then, I think the iPhones were not as good, so the quality of the photos weren't great. But they were good enough to be able to utilize these platforms as a business tool, you know. Yeah. And luckily, like, right place, right time, a bit of luck, no planning involved in it whatsoever. One of my good pals, Joe Wicks, shared the page onto his page, and he's got a ton of following. And that was, again, a real pivotal moment. And I say this quite a lot, you know, it sounds good. It sounds great to get a shout out from Joe Wicks, but actually, because the circumstances that I was in terms of like my setup, I was in my mum and dad's kitchen. I had no email account. I had no website address. I had nothing in place. I had like no supply chain, no facilities to really produce a product or develop the business. So I was exposed to a lot of interest on social media, a lot of followings, requests and orders and stuff like that immediately. Like, on the 6th of January, he shared the page, and the next day I was making cheesecakes and I'd given up painting and decorating. So it was like this overnight transition. It was, you hear these people, nothing's an overnight success, and that's absolutely the case. But in terms of transition from like one career to the next, it was overnight.
Yeah.
Even though I'd been making them previously. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, just sort of interject there. Like, that is a really important point, isn't it? Like, I understand like the idea of like overnight success, and but like you said, there's always like a lot of work in the background, even if it's not directly fitted to what that person became an overnight success with. So it seems like that's like a similar story with you. You spent all those years doing different things, from being a stunt man to painting and decorating, like all these different things. But do you think that all those things, all the people you met along the way before you even opened up the Pleesecake Instagram, do you think that all of that helped you and build you as a character to allow you to succeed with this particular project? Or like, do you think they all had an effect on your journey?
I think that applies to everyone in their journey. Like, and that stems from your childhood, I suppose. Yeah. The environment you're brought up in, the people you meet, everything has an effect. It creates something that potentially could affect your the outcome later in life. You know, I think everything happens, you know, like everything happens for a reason. My painting and decorating, running that business had transferable skills. So when I was running that business, that was people management or cash flow or whatever it was. There were skills that I could take across to Pleesecakes. But I think it goes back to the 10,000 hours or the 10-year sort of concept, where nothing worthwhile, nothing that's being built with value, with real value, happens overnight. It's that I really believe in that 10,000 hour concept, or the 10-year concept. We've been going, we're in our 7th year of business now at Pleesecakes. You know, it feels like a lifetime, but it's gone in a flash, and we're still not there. You know, we've still gone through some really turbulent times. This previous year just gone, it's been probably the most testing and turbulent year of the 6 years that we've been going. And I think we're that 4 years away from true success. And how do I measure success? I think when it becomes that's going to be the harder part, to measure success. But I think at that 10-year point, we can really sort of gauge if it's been successful or not.
On that point you just mentioned just before that, like in terms of the timing that things take, and obviously you were fortunate with Pleesecakes for it to be quite a quick thing to get off of the ground, or even though you'd obviously put in all the work beforehand, at the actual starting and it being out in the public, it seemed like quite a quick turnaround, if you want to put it that way. But one of my questions based off of that is like, how do you know when to, if things are not being as quick as that, if things are taking time, your project's taking time, like for example, me and this podcast, I've been doing this for 5 years, and like no real monetary return or no real direct impact from the podcast itself. How do you know, or what would you suggest to people? Like how should you measure when to ditch a project or keep going with it? Like, is there a way you can say, oh, if I stick in a few more years, it might pay off? Or how do you know when to sort of like cut your losses and say, I'm out?
I think it needs to go back to like why you do it, the why, basically. What's the purpose of you doing it? Like, if it's for money solely, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. You know, I think you've got to be led by your passion and a purpose. You know, I'm passionate about food. I love food. So this could take me 20, 30 years. It could take me 2 years. I'm not looking at the time scale on that. I'm looking about the purpose of what I'm doing, and I'm trying to create the world's most exciting dessert brand. So it really has to stem back to the why you're doing it. And if you enjoy this podcast, it might take 10, 15 years to get off the ground. But if you enjoy it, then you keep doing it, kind of thing. I think that's got to be the focus, rather than when to pack it in. If it is monetary reward only and it's taking too long, then pack it in. Like, but if you're passionate about it, enjoy doing it, and it's giving you some sort of personal satisfaction, or it's helping others, if it's bringing value to others, then stick at it.
But yeah, no, thanks. I really appreciate that. And in terms of like your going back to how you got started, I find something really satisfying, and I relate to how you started. Like for example, at the moment I'm starting a new project, and like we're trying to get investors, and they're asking for business plans. I'm like, oh mate, I don't do, like, it's just not natural for me to do business plans and stuff like that. And like, it seems similar to your story. I believe like a burger chain let you use their kitchen. I think you had your mum as a delivery driver. You had no PR or marketing, no uniforms, no suppliers. Like you literally just got started, almost bare bones, and you built it, and everyone come to you. So yeah, just sort of remind us of that element, that sort of bare bone element.
Yeah, I think it's the main thing for me to get for me to be in this position where I am today. It was action taken, and it was that action of setting up the Instagram account that led to Joe Wicks sharing it, that led to the opportunities that followed from there. So it was that initial action taken. I didn't have a clue about anything that was related to this business, like you mentioned, about supply chain, about health and safety, about processes, about the logistics, about anything. I didn't have a clue. Never dealt with this business before, no experience, never made a cake before professionally, like completely self-taught. So I learned very quickly because it was such an instant transition. I learned very quickly. I made a ton of mistakes, like I made a lot of mistakes, probably for the first 6 years, I would say, which is the whole time we've been going. Yeah. And I feel like I'm just starting to learn now. I've been on basically a journey of learning for the last 6 years, and I've made more mistakes than I haven't, basically. Yeah. And again, this is the cliche that everyone says, you learn from your failures, but it really is true. You can't sort of sugarcoat it. You do learn from your failures. And at the start, I surrounded myself with good people. I was lucky because of social media. The ex-production manager of Greggs, who was made redundant, Ian Campbell, came on free of charge and sort of supported us with the processes and health and safety, and that was a real sort of a great person to be around initially. I then started hiring professional chefs in the kitchen towards the end of the first year who could help me scale up the production. But look, we started on a direct to consumer model, which is, again, look at this is again hindsight. In business, it happens a lot. There's a lot of hindsight that happens. Okay, so I look back now. I'd started as these large cakes, these big large cakes that need temperature controlled distributions. They need to be kept at a certain temperature. All these toppings on top that were hugely delicate, like you cannot distribute them. We could distribute them, but we only had one van, so we couldn't reach the whole of the UK. So we started trying to outsource and use couriers. And they take this box, this beautifully decorated box, this expensive cake product for someone's anniversary or birthday or wedding, and they kick it down the road. They completely mess it up because they don't really care about what's in the box, even if you put fragile stickers on it. So like, I'm like, how do I scale this? Like, I'm on a mission, but I can't scale it. So realizations very early on about how we're going to scale this brand and become this exciting dessert brand. So we soon identified other products that we could focus on. So mini cheesecakes were a bit more robust, but still required temperature control distribution. We focused on innovation and development. So things like Pleesecakes was an early idea, but got shelved because of the other cakes becoming very busy, and events and festivals and stuff like that. And I knew there was two avenues that I could have gone down with the business. So I could have gone down manufacturing and scale up manufacturing, which is highly risky, which I found out today. Like that, there's an highly costly. So I could set up a massive factory with 150 staff, huge investments to set up the production lines, which COVID could happen, something could happen, anything could happen, and we're in a very sort of costly position. Or go down the brand route, where we focus on the brand, we focus on social media, we focus on NPD or new product development, and that's the route that I've been trying to go down for the last 3 years. So I've been trying to outsource production. You've called me at quite a good time in terms of like I'm in this transitional period. So we've got our kitchen downstairs, which has got us to the point today. So it's fairly big. It's not big for production to service retailers or to scale the brand. And I've been working to try and find a partner for the last 3 years, which is half the time we've been going, basically. And luckily we found it, and I think a lot of food brand, this will probably relate to a lot of people who listen to it who've got a food brand, how to scale. Like there's that avenue, there's brand and there's NPD and there's manufacturing, and it's really hard to do both, which I've figured out, I think. So we've found manufacturing, and that's really going to allow us to focus on the social media and what we're good at, because I think we're slightly different in terms of the type of company we are. We are product led. We produce products, but we're also content creators. We create valuable free content with recipes and tutorials and advice and business tips and motivation and inspiration and things like that. So I think there's two pillars to our business that we're very passionate about, and they all kind of tie in with each other. And it's a case of execution now for me. It's executing these next launches over the next year, and I've made some incredibly bold moves over the last year as well. So we've gone from a team of 30 down to 4 people, which has been there's some drastic changes. We've shut down production downstairs. We don't make product anymore. We don't sell product. We're currently a non-operational company where we don't make any money at the moment, but we have got these incredibly exciting launches coming up this year as well. So, but that wouldn't have happened unless big decisions were made.
Yeah, no, it makes complete. I guess it's almost like a catapult, isn't it? Sometimes you sort of need to learn, right, now's the time where I'm pulling back, waiting, cutting down, waiting for that one opportunity, and then you can let go. But
and self-awareness, so I think self-awareness is a key attribute to have for a lot of entrepreneurs. You know, like understand the company's position or the position you're in. Like, do not hide away from a situation that actually you need to just like face and be like, this is the situation. I need to make some big moves now, or changes or decisions to enable the longevity of this company. And similarly with being self-aware with my own skill set. Like, I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at. If it's finances, I've got a FD who's involved heavily in the finances. I'm still on it and over it and stuff like that. But I'm quite self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not, and I think that's really key for any entrepreneur to have.
No, I agree. Before we sort of continue on that self-awareness piece, I just wanted to put something in quickly, because one of the things I saw, and I was like, that's just crazy, and it relates to what you just said there about being product led, and sort of focusing on the quality of the product, because you've made a cake for a very important person who's no longer with us. But yeah, do you want to tell us about that? I'm guessing you know who I'm on about, right? The Queen.
Yeah, the Queen. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day actually, because so I'll tell you the process, and I think there's actually a bit of content that I could, or like a series or something that I could get out of this. Basically, so we were in the kitchen. This was 6 months into the company. So in June of 2017, we get a call, or Sam gets a call, who's been with me from the start of the company. She's our director of operations now. And we get a call, and it's McVitie's, the brand, the biscuit brand. And they say, we've got this VIP we want you to make a cake for. That's all they say during the day. And then we carry on with our day. They call back about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when we're walking out the kitchen, and they tell us who it is. They say it's the Queen, you know, and we're like, what? So we go back into the kitchen. We're only allowed to use McVitie's products. There's a process of getting clearance into Clarence House with the products. So we made 2 cakes using McVitie's only. It was in celebration of the Jubilee or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Her birthday, obviously. And we delivered them. Whether this is the bit of content that I think I could potentially. Did she ever eat the cake? That's my question. Yeah. There's no picture. They're not going to take a picture of her eating a Pleesecake, but it got delivered to Clarence House. We had to clear security. Whether she ate it or not, there's potential for a bit of content creation around a bit of detective work and to see if she actually had the product or not. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Yeah, you should do that. You should definitely try and do that. Yeah, it'd be good to know.
Yeah. I don't know if she ate it, but do you know what? Look, it's been a talking point about the company for the last 6 years. You know, it's an incredible experience. Whether she had it or not, I'm not sure, but just to have that on our CV essentially is pretty incredible.
So just returning back to your point on self-awareness before we sort of spoke about obviously the Queen, which is just huge. The reason I wanted to sort of pause on that point was you was asked a question relating to self-awareness on Dragon's Den when Deborah Meaden asked you. She essentially asked you like what your weakness was. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of dive in. I didn't think you would. I had a feeling you wouldn't remember. But yeah, I just wanted to dive into that experience as well, because not only was, I believe, all in your first year, you was in Selfridges, you had all these products, you obviously made a cake for the Queen, like you did so much, starting off on such a mad journey, because like you just didn't do it in the conventional way. So then to have Dragon's Den as sort of like in some people's eyes, perhaps like the cherry on the cake after a mad year. What was that experience like going on that show?
I think previously, like we in that first year, we probably grew too quickly. We were just, because the social media was growing, the demand was growing, but we couldn't facilitate the demand basically. And looking back, like that's not a good business model. We need to be able to keep up with demand. You know, we had a book deal in that first year. We did a ton of stuff, and it was really exciting. And it was like, oh my god, it's gonna it's going to be really successful really quickly. And actually, like, we weren't prepared for it. We totally weren't prepared for it. Early 2018, I got approached by Ben Davies, who's one of the producers on BBC Two, Dragon's Den, and said, would you like to come on? Like, I was actively looking for investment to help scale the business. At that point, I was still thinking I was going to continue manufacturing in-house, basically. And so I was looking to expand the kitchen, which got us here today. And actually, just on the point of building it on direct to consumer, that's what built community. And I think that was really important, that we launched with direct to consumer, built community, and then we're doing this transition. But anyway, back to Dragon's Den. Had to go through this due diligence process about if we were legit and we're actually looking for investment. And we filmed it in the June of that 2018. So a year and a half in. Again, I couldn't really keep up with the demand of the brand and the product. We're a new brand. Socials back then, you could grow much quicker, much more organically. So we were growing at like 10,000 followers a day on Instagram. That's unheard of unless you're like a superstar on TV all the time.
Just quickly on that point, why was that was because of the algorithm back then, plus everything else going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't a TikTok around back then. Like, Instagram was the main channel. There were the Instagram was customer led, you know, it was user led, rather than when the takeover happened with Meta or Facebook. They're revenue driven, you know, they don't care about their users, basically. So if you're not spending on the ads, if you're not spending money on the platform and you're generating business and earning money through your business organically, they're pushing down the algorithm. So it became very challenging over the last few years to go on Instagram. And luckily I set up a TikTok account, which I suppose we'll get into the social media side of things in a bit. But if you want to cover Dragon's Den first, the experience. So going back to that, filmed in June. It aired in the September of that second year. So the second year was again quite mad. Like, there was loads going on. It was the release of the book. We were on This Morning with Phil and Holly again. They were making a cake, all that sort of stuff. Did Dragon's Den in September. So there was a ton of it, like quite big exposure for the brand, but all came too soon. We weren't prepared for it. We were too young, too naive, too inexperienced. Didn't. I wish all that happens now. It would be a really good time to happen now. It doesn't matter. Like, it was incredible, and it really did grow the brand. But the experience itself is filmed up in Manchester. I'm not sure if it is still now, but you go in. There's three or four of you per day, and I set up in the studio. It's a studio. It's not a warehouse. And I do the lift.
On that point, the lift is fake, right? I've heard this. The lift is fake.
Yeah, it's fake. I don't know if I should say that, but yeah, it's fake. It's not a real lift. But you do the lift walk, you do it a few times. You go backwards and forwards, and you pretend to press the button, and then on the final take, the doors open, and the dragons are sat there in front of you. You walk up to a mark on the floor, and nothing. It's a weird experience because nothing really happens. No one says anything. No one's like, and action. It's kind of like you just walk in and start pitching, and then you do your pitch, and then they interact with you, and they come up to the cheesecake bar and they try the product and they see the products and stuff like that. They sit back down, and then they start their questioning and grilling, basically. And obviously it's cut down from, I was in there for 2 hours, almost 2 hours, down to like a 10-minute slot on the TV. So they couldn't include things like selfies because of branding, for advertisement and copyright reasons or whatever. But like, it was a great experience. I messed up my numbers a little bit, and again, like, just my naivety with the business. It was very early days in the business, but we still got an offer. I still got an offer from Tuka Suleiman, who offered 50 grand for 35% of the business, which is, even back then, even knowing what I did back then, I knew it wasn't a good deal, you know, even though I could potentially tap into his network, which I knew a few food brands that he'd invested in, and I'd never seen them really take off. So I was quite aware of that, and politely declined the offer, and walked out, and I never saw them again. That was it. Like, you don't speak to them after or prior. Got in my van, and I headed back down, I think straight back to the kitchen, and carried on with production. You know, it was a great experience, and when it aired, it really exposed the brand again to the next level, you know. And I think it grew our social media massively. It was again another talking point, another incredible talking point that we can talk about for years to come. So all in all, great experience, but scary and daunting at the time.
You sort of touched on it there, like, in terms of being perhaps too early. Like, are you somebody that sort of has regrets, or like do things sort of weigh on your mind like that, or are you sort of similar to me, I guess, where it's just sort of like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be?
Yeah, I believe that. Look, there's always hindsight. You'd always do something differently, surely. But I think the approach is a positive mindset. I think for me, I've learned a lot in the last 6 years. It's armed me with some key skills, some key attributes, and things that I can use going forward now. And I don't know. I don't have any regrets. There's things that I would have done differently, but I don't regret them because you can't, can you?
No, that's it. And it sort of leads on quite nicely. Obviously, my podcast is called If Only They Knew. Is there anything that you wish you knew at a earlier stage when you were starting? You mentioned there's sort of the naivety, the numbers, and I guess there's loads of things to answer that question, right?
Yeah, I could have been completely be completely knowledgeable about the industry and social media and done courses and done cake decorating classes and all that sort of stuff. But actually, the naivety led me to become quite fearless. And I think if I'd had the knowledge and understanding about how challenging manufacturing or starting a food business was, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes the less you know is a good thing. I think being naive naivety can support that fearlessness and actually allow you to take the action that requires you to get started. So if there was something else I knew, maybe there's so many things that I'd like to have known previously, but I think it's just hindsight.
And talking sort of more now, what's going on in the present? You mentioned just before we spoke about Dragons Den, the social media platforms and how not perhaps not easy, but how simple it was to grow back then. What's your view on this, like the social media landscape now? What platforms do you use? What's working for you? And is there anything sort of you're doing that you're like, right, this is key. This is something we wasn't doing before, but it's working now.
Yeah, I think the social media landscape changes very, very frequently. Like it's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. I started on Instagram. That was my main platform. There was Twitter floating around like in the background for us, but nothing. We'd never really focused on Twitter. And I stuck at Instagram for the first, how long would it have been? 3 years. So yeah, when TikTok, I started TikTok basically in 2020, and my team were like, "What are you doing? Like it's a young person's platform. There's dancing on there like." There's going to be no value about going on this platform, and I stuck at it. I stuck at it. I was posting random content. I was posting completely off-brand, off-product related content, but I was being consistent. I think that's a key thing with social media is consistency. And it started growing. The numbers were coming in big, and we grew to 1 million followers in that first year.
Wow.
And again, like it seems to happen and repeat itself from platform to platform. Everything's slowed down on TikTok now. It's a bit harder to grow. There's ads now. There's algorithms. It's a different platform. I think it's easier to grow if you've got good content. And I think there's some content that we're releasing about how to make a video go viral. And I think there's some key points, i.e., being relevant. So you're not posting something that's completely out of touch with what's going on in the world. If something tragic's happening in the world, you're not posting something that's really cheerful and happy. I think there's things like timing, so you've got to get your timing right, and that varies platform to platform as well. Hooks, so that a hook needs to happen in the first 2 to 3 seconds, and then every 2 seconds something is changing in the video, whether it's subtitles or B-roll or zoom in or zoom out, whatever it is. There's also things like keeping up with trends and new features. So there's some key points that are going to help and support your content going viral, and that will differ again platform to platform. But my main platforms are Instagram, which we still use, which is our probably most engaged audience, most relevant audience. TikTok, which is, I think, is going to continue to grow. It's going to be a platform where we're going to see numbers just explode. Like there is still opportunity to grow from a small, like to have no following and have your content go viral. You don't need a big following to have content go viral. That's how the algorithm works. Yeah. And LinkedIn, which is we've been plugging away at, but I think, and it gets slated quite a lot, I think, recently. But I think for me, it's been I can work on personal branding and I can also work on my business on the same platform. I think I've gained a lot of buyers and stockists and investors and like really, really relevant contacts on that platform. And also I'm starting to create a bit of a personal brand on there and share my story and share things that relate to that audience, you know. And I'll have a bit of content that has the same message and the same copy, but in different formats. So for TikTok, that copy will be video format, obviously, with subtitles. For LinkedIn, it's going to be a written post with a picture potentially, you know. So it's just understanding platform to platform. But they're my three: LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok.
So yeah, just carrying on from what you said there, you're talking about obviously the social media platforms you leverage, the tools you leverage, and one of those tools was personal brand. And it's something I wanted to ask you a little bit earlier as well in the conversation, because how much has your personal brand been at the forefront of the company itself, or has it not been? Like, what's been your play with that, and how much has that helped you in terms of opportunities, in terms of people coming to you, helping you out, the Joe Wicks, the man from Greg's, all these people sort of come in and buying into the brand? How much of that is to do with yourself?
Oh, well, at the start, I didn't want to show my face. You know, I just wanted to be product led. So it took me a while even to get on Instagram. And naturally, I'm not very good in front of camera. Like historically, I look back at some of the videos now, and I'm very monotone. I'm like this, like, can you follow us? We're launching here, like, and I cringe at it. You know, I think it's really like it's good to look back at your progress, but it's something that I was quite uncomfortable with, and being on camera and doing live TV and social media is like it's not my comfort zone. You know, it wasn't natural to me. So it was something that I had to force myself to do, and I think I'm still learning how to do it and how to articulate myself and not come across boring or monotone. And personal branding has been quite a new thing for me, I think, like very recently, like or how popular it's becoming or how talked about. It's something that I've noticed about the importance or how important it can be to support my brand. So I'm not looking for is to be like the face of the brand in terms of like Levi Roots or KFC. You've got the Colonel. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to support it in a different way in terms of like my personal brand is my experiences, but here's my company, here's my products, kind of thing, you know. So it's helped massively by me putting a face to the brand on social medias, because it becomes personal and relatable, and people like people buy into people. If I just stuck a tub of Pleesecakes up on social media, there's not much engagement there. There's going to be a lack of relatability, and I think for me it's very key for anyone to especially if they've got a brand, or even if they're just personal brand, and it creates opportunity. You know, people, like I say, and people buy into your story, and storytelling's becoming very, very popular. And if you need a story, you can't just be like, we make cheesecakes. It's like, I was a painter and decorator with no experience, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I launched this cheesecake company. We made a cheesecake for the Queen, and there's a story there. People are like, why? How'd you do that? Like, oh, I can do that as well. And there's things behind that story that will help people. It's inspirational, motivate someone to get up and take action. And I think that's where I want to take my personal brand. You know, I'm not trying to monetize my personal brand at all. It's how I can help and bring value to the audiences on our social media platforms. And my personal social pages are non-existent. I've got a personal Instagram account. I've just set up a personal TikTok account, which I want to start building as well. But obviously I do social media, LinkedIn, from my personal account, but I think it's really important, personal branding. And I think it could be it opens up opportunities. If someone wants to just focus on personal branding, you see all these people on LinkedIn now, like it can create opportunities, it can create an income for you.
No, I think there's a theme here of like using what you can, isn't it? It seems like that's what you've done from the very beginning. But I just wanted to quickly dive into a few quick fire questions before the final question, if you don't mind. So quick fire. Advice for young entrepreneurs, if you had to pick one today.
Take action.
And your favorite creators at the moment? You said you're on all the platforms. Is there anyone that stands out for you?
Creators
or entrepreneurs, anyone that you see out there doing good things?
Love what Stephen Bartlett's doing. Obviously, these are probably a bit more cliche, but like Stephen Bartlett's killing it. I think he's just consistent. Like you can see the progress in quality, and the way he applies himself to his brand and his content is just it's nice to watch. Other entrepreneurs, Ben Francis we're doing great with Gymshark. I think there's some really like some revolutionary tactics about how they approach certain things. Who else? Who else is creating good content? I like all the smaller. I love supporting smaller brands, and I think you've had Keelan on here from Brownies.
Yeah, he's next. Yeah, I've got him on next. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like all the I love these micro influencers or micro creators as well. And I think that you see a higher engagement with these smaller accounts as well. I think influencer marketing is kind of not dead, but I think there's a different audience. I think originally that's how we grew. You know, we utilize influencer marketing to help grow our brand. We could send out products and they'd promote it and our following would grow. But actually it's become so saturated where influencers are just receiving free stuff, and it's disingenuous, it's inauthentic, and people see through that now. You know, I think there needs to be a level of authenticity. Another creator that Keelan actually put me in touch or showed me was a page in America called Mid Square, what are they called? Mid Square Moment, something like that. They're like a product, like a brownie or whatever it is, but they're on a mission as well, and they're really good at storytelling. Like I looked at his page, and they're great at storytelling. So there's a ton of content creators out there, but I think it all goes back to someone who's doing something really relatable, that is really good at storytelling, and that is really passionate about what they're doing.
Last couple on a quick fire. Then, what is the meaning of life to you? It seems like you're a guy that's about fun, enjoying it. You seem like you're quite light-hearted, if that makes sense. Am I right in saying that? What's your meaning to life?
I don't know. Who knows? That's the £1 million question. I don't know. I honestly look. It's a quite a deep question, I suppose, but I don't honestly know. I don't know. I'm not religious. I think I don't know. Why are we here? I always look at like, what we're doing. Like the vastness of space and the universe is just mind-boggling. It's incomprehensible. But I honestly don't know. Like I think for me, it's just trying to enjoy a journey, a process. There's no like end goal. It's not like I need to get to £100 million revenue and I'll be happy. It's like, oh, I'm enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying the failures. We're on this earth for like a tiny blip, you know. We're here for like, and actually like that's a privilege that I get to experience all these different emotions, like stress and pain and happiness and all these I get to experience those through this journey. So I think that's just the journey process for me is really key.
No, I love that. I'm 100% on board with that one as well. Last quick fire one in relation to that last answer, your legacy. Do you have a legacy at all? Do you want to leave a legacy behind, or is it something that doesn't interest you?
It's not something that doesn't interest me. I suppose I haven't thought about it in depth, but I think if I can leave a positive message or have impact on the next generation, I think I would die happy. I think if I could, I've always wanted to support the younger generation, especially in business. I think there's a ton of conversation happening around education and about how that's not necessarily the right route for everyone. You know, I think starting a business or apprenticeships can be the best route for a lot of people, and there's not enough funding or support in those areas. You know, I think that's where I want to try and utilize my personal brand, where I can inspire or motivate or support the younger generation in their journey to start their very own business and hopefully make a life for themselves.
I love it. And the final thing then, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I really mean that. It's been really good to listen to you. What's next for yourself? And I apologize, I kept saying Pleesecakes. It's now Pleese, isn't it? So yeah, tell us about what's next for you and Pleese. And yeah, wrapped into that, if you have a final message for everyone listening as well.
Yeah, so we've transitioned from Pleesecakes to Pleese, which Pleesecakes hasn't gone anywhere. We've just utilized our umbrella brand Pleese, which is going to be like the Heinz, the Apple, the Virgin, and have all our sub brands underneath it, like Pleesecakes and Freezecakes, and all the additional concepts. And the strategy is our mission is to become the world's most exciting dessert brand. But how we do that is make our products more accessible at a better price, but remain the best quality and the most innovative products out there. And I think the only way we could do that is scale up through other sectors. So we've knocked direct to consumer on the head for now, and we're looking to expand into retail, into the big retailers this year, which is going to be the biggest challenge. You know, it's going to be one of the hardest things we do, because these are big accounts. These are big numbers, there's potential to get delisted. There's potential to lose a lot of money. It's going to require more investment. It's going to require building the team again. It's high risk, it's high risk, but that's the only way we scale. So retail is our next port of call, and it's going to happen I'm hoping in the next few weeks. We'll see. So on a mission, and I can't wait to share our new brand and our new products.